So the Apple event did not take place on the 23rd of March, and a lot of Apple leakers and news channels are now saying the new iPad Pro will be coming in April. But is this really the case? Let's ramble.
Hold up, place go wild when I pull up. They all on me like it wants some.
Hey, what's up guys? It is great to see you all again. And if you're new here, I'm Patrick, and this is why I ramble about tech and other stuff. So a lot of leakers and Apple news channels are pointing towards April as the new iPad launch date, with the same confidence as when they announced the iPad would be presented at the Apple event on the 23rd of March. Except that we now know there was no Apple event on the 23rd of March. I mean, a man lost his eyebrows for Pete's sake. That's right, Jon Prosser, who runs Front Page Tech on YouTube and who is one of the best known Apple News Twitterati, was so certain that an Apple event would take place on the 23rd of March that he bet his eyebrows on it. As a reminder, this is what he tweeted. Well, imagine his surprise when he found out that the event wasn't going to take place on the 23rd. In fact, he now looks permanently surprised because the man has no eyebrows. But like I said in my previous iPad update video, and I'll put a link to that at the end of this video, I do have mad respect for Jon, one, for being a man of his word, and two, for donating the proceeds of the FPT episode where he took the clippers to his eyebrows to a great cause, which is wigs for kids. So once again, props to Jon. And there are rumors that Apple purposely misled some people to believe the event would take place on the 23rd of March because they were trying to find out where the leak is. We all know that Apple hates leaks, and they have been really cracking down on this. Not only did they sue one of their former employees hard, apparently Apple is going as far as to implement tougher security guidelines for its manufacturing partners. And we know what Apple means by guidelines. You better do it. And the funny thing is that Mac Rumors writes that this information is coming from an internal document which was obtained by, or leaked to, the information. Oh, sweet irony. But anyway, we can assume that it's real since the information has a 91% accuracy rate. So the iPad wasn't launched this week. Now what? Well, let's have a look at what we know, or at least what we think we know. Right, so now everybody seems to agree on April for the product launch. Prosser said it's April in one of his tweets. In fact, he said it's gonna be April, and it was always April, and this was before he shaved off his eyebrows. I guess maybe he had a sliver of hope that a magical event would appear on the 23rd after all that would salvage his eyebrows, but no. And so, while Jon is taking a little credibility timeout, he did say in the Genius Bar podcast that he believes that the iPads are already in mass production. And it's not just Jon saying it's April, it's also Ming-Chi Kuo, and he is one of the more reputable leakers at 76.6% over 142 rumors. But even Mark Gurman mentioned April, and he's one of the most trusted leakers since he has an astonishing track record for accuracy of almost 90% on more than 400 rumors. Although Gurman is hedging his bets a little bit by saying Apple plans to announce the new iPads as early as April, so it could be later. And Apple doesn't really do April events. The last time they did an event in April was an Apple special event in 2010, where they announced iPhone OS 4. And if you've seen my previous iPad updates, you know my thoughts on this. I personally believe the iPad might be launching closer to June. And I know some of you are gonna hate me for saying this, especially if you're planning to get your first iPad Pro or you can't wait to upgrade from an older model, but hear me out. The reason why I think the new iPad Pro might be launched in June is because that's usually when we get all the relevant software updates from Apple at the Developers Conference, aka WWDC. And why do I think that? Well, part of it is wishful thinking. We've been hearing rumors that pro apps like Logic and Final Cut Pro might be coming to the iPad. Jon Prosser said in April of last year that he is 100% confident that Final Cut, Logic, and Xcode are coming to the iPad. Somewhat nuancing that statement by saying he doesn't know to what capacity or with what limitations, and most of us do expect there to be some limitations, so expecting a Final Cut Pro Lite, if you will. But it makes sense that the iPad software needs tweaking to make that happen, and therefore it would make perfect sense to me that this would be announced in June, alongside iPadOS 15. There's a tiny possibility that it might be launched with iPadOS 14.5, since there have been hints in the code of the beta version for some big upgrades, but my money is on June. But again, this is just my theory and not something that has been confirmed. And there is something else that fits right in with this theory, and that is one of Mark Gurman's latest statements, which is that the iPad might be getting a Thunderbolt port, which would mean tremendously higher transfer rates, and that means we would be able to use high-speed external SSD drives and actually make use of their high data transfer rates as well. And one of the applications where this is extremely relevant is, you guessed it, video editing, which again leads me to believe that Apple is paving the way for pro apps to come to the iPad. But it's not only that, a Thunderbolt port would also make it much easier and faster to hook up an external monitor with all of its functionality directly to your iPad. And apart from a Thunderbolt port, what we really need to be able to run pro apps is a powerful and efficient processor. We've already talked about this in previous videos. We've been expecting a processor called A14X, and Gurman said that this chip would be on par with the new M1 chips we find in the current Mac lineup. Rene Ritchie over on his channel made a very interesting case on why he believes the A14X chip is basically the M1 chip minus some very Mac-specific elements. If you haven't seen that video and you're a nerd like I am, I recommend you check it out. And this rumor of a new chip now seems to have been confirmed, as signs of the new chip have been found in the latest beta version of iOS 14.5. 9to5Mac reports that references to GPU from a chip called 13G have been found in the iOS 14.5 code, and that's not currently used on any iOS device, which indicates a new chip, and it is most likely referring to the A14X SoC. But Apple tends to use code names for chips internally, hence 13G. The report also says that the A14X chip is based on the T8103, which is the code name for the Apple M1 chip. So what's left? We know that we're getting better cameras on the iPad Pro, although that is probably not something most of us are too excited about. I don't really use my iPad to take pictures, but you know, why not? And we also know that the 12.9-inch version of the iPad Pro will come with a new mini LED screen. And while that is still not the best display technology out there, it is a significant improvement over the current LCD screens, which quite frankly are pretty terrible for this day and age. And this seems to tie in very nicely with another interesting observation, and that is that the accessories company ESR has added several new iPad Pro cases on their website that are meant for the 2021 iPad Pros. And what we see there is that there will be fewer speaker holes on the new models, indicating that there will be smaller speakers. And that could mean that Apple is trying to make room inside the iPad's chassis for other components like mini LED, a new chip, and so on. I wouldn't be too worried about diminished audio quality. I don't think Apple would reduce the quality of anything on a newer model, so I would assume they found a way to make it work with even smaller speakers. Speaking of cases, we are expecting a new Magic Keyboard to be launched with the new iPads. We already talked about this in my previous iPad update, but for those of you who haven't seen that, very quickly, the patent Apple registered shows a design that could store and charge Apple Pencil inside the hinge. The hinge itself could be raised higher, which could mean that function keys are coming, and last but not least, it could be folded down all the way, which would fix one of the biggest gripes I have with the current Magic Keyboard. So guys, as we get closer to the actual launch of the new iPad, it is looking to be a beast. Better screen, new cameras, new chip, and a Thunderbolt port. Guys, I hope the video was useful to you. If it was, give it a thumbs up. It really does help the channel. And if there is more news in the next weeks and months, I will definitely update you guys. So feel free to subscribe if you'd like to stay in the loop. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.